Hello, everyone. It's me, Kirsten, and this is the It's Giving Mystical podcast. And this is the podcast for the week of June 7th. My baby boy was born on June 8th, so I love this week and I love this energy. And I'm so grateful because the card I pulled for us is the Star, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I just want to say that this is a week where I'm just going to say it, like wishes come true. This is a week where there's just this sparkle and this fairy dust to everything you touch. Enjoy it. Soak it in. Don't I don't want to miss a thing. I feel like I quote Aerosmith on this podcast way too often. But I don't want to miss a thing. That's the energy of this week. The Star energy is so deeply healing. There's so much love in it. And if you've heard me talk about it before, you know that the Star energy is calling on our male ancestors, our male lineage. Just take that in for a second. I wonder what your experience of your spirit guides, your spirit council, your squad, like who do you turn to when you need to pray? Maybe it's a divinity, maybe it's an ancestor, maybe it's the earth, like whoever you turn to in the world to say, help me. Maybe it's a person here in the world, like a material person. But whoever brings you that masculine energy, and I know that is so loaded, so we want to be so generous with that term, so generous with this idea of who do you trust to hold you? That's all we're talking about, right? So it doesn't have to be men. It doesn't have to be your man. It doesn't have to be your father. It could be. That would be wonderful. What a blessing to have men in your life who show you safety. What a blessing. I know that is not the experience for many, 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 many people. So we want to be very generous with this term. We want to be very curious about any assumptions or presumptions we're bringing to this idea, because the Star energy is so clean. It is the lineage, the people who have come before you, who have set the path for you, who walk with you, who protect you, who want you to succeed and shine. Those can be earthly beings, those can be ethereal beings, those can be divinities or God figures. It can be God himself. The idea is, who do you turn to when you need that sense of protection? It could be a woman in your life. It could be part of your feminine lineage. But there's something about the Star energy that is very clean in its transmission of, I got you. I got you, baby girl. And I was having a conversation with a woman I study with her in more shamanic realms, and she has struggled with this idea of the divine masculine and divine feminine. And I thought about something that someone said to me a long time ago. Your masculine energy is the one looking back at you in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, the person looking back at you, the energy looking back at you, it remains the same. So your face might change, your appearance might change, your mood definitely is changing. But there's this sense of the person looking back at you is the same person, that there's some part of that dynamic there that is the same as the one who was looking back at you when you were 3 years old, the one who was looking back at you when you were 10 years old, the one who will be looking back at you when you hopefully reach the long, healthy end of your life. There's this sense of who's tracking you. Like, who's with you in this lifetime? Who's keeping an eye on you in the best way? For some of us, that's going to be a person. For some of us, that's going to be gravity. For some of us, that's going to be consciousness. For some of us, that's going to be quiet stillness. But the Star card is the transmission of you are held. And it can take on lots of flavors or textures, meaning the Star card can show up in a time of where we need rest. So the Star follows the Tower in the major arcana. So it's important to know that the Star usually comes after something has gotten uprooted, something has gotten broken down, something has felt shifted in a way that may or may not feel good, but it's definitive. The Star energy comes in and says, okay, just take a minute. We talked about this last week. Integrate. Be with what has shifted. Notice that the walls have crumbled. You don't need to get to fixing that right away. You can sit for a moment. You can breathe for a moment. You can let the world hold you. The Mother Peace Tarot deck, the Star image on the traditional deck is so beautiful, if it's not an image you're familiar with. One of my favorite images is the image from the Mother Peace deck. And it's this beautiful rock pool, this like natural spring, this natural rock pool. And it's a looks like a feminine being in this rock pool with flowers and creatures, and it's this like soft pink, and it just has this energy of deep appreciation, deep nurturing and nourishment. And there's just this beauty to the card, the beauty to the form of rest that's offered to this person, to this being, that is so loving and special and cocoons them in good energy, cocoons them in safety. This sense of unfurling, as a woman who I do a lot of work with, and she's one of the women that comes to our circles, and when she first walked into the space, I might have even told you guys this before, she said that she wants to unfurl into her life, unfurl into her space. Think about that all the time. What a beautiful image. To be able to do that, you have to feel so safe. You have to know that you are accepted. You have to know that whatever you put, whatever unfurling yourself means, when you reveal your full self, what is that actually going to feel like? What is that going to look like? The safety required to allow that is profound. And that is the safety given to us in the star energy. And in its best expression, that is the safety offered to us by our male lineage, our male ancestors. I'm just going to say one more thing about that, and then I want to kind of move us in a different place. But again, also came up last week, marine and family constellations work. The truth of your experience of the men who are your ancestors. So there's their earthly formation and the way that they showed up in your lives and whether they were safe for you or not. And that is, you have full permission and full sovereignty to decide what that distance looks like how good they feel close or how good they feel further away. And I encourage you to take full power in terms of, especially if you're a grown human listening to this, in terms of the distance you need to feel safe in your own space. And if we follow it far enough back, I had an incredible constellation with Maureen once where she lined up 8 generations of women in my family, my mother, my grandmother, going back 8 generations. And then I had dialogue with each one of those generations. And I will never forget that. The gift that was so deep and beautiful. But what was so interesting is that when I got to the 8th generation, there was nothing but pure love. Like there was just openness and emptiness and witnessing and pure love. So I have probably top 3 purest expressions, transmissions of love I've ever received in any of my spiritual work. And I've done a lot of crazy things. And I've experienced pretty life-altering infusions of that pure love energy. And this was up there. And what I thought was so interesting was we talk about that idea of 7 generations, right? We're responsible for 7 generations backwards and forwards. And I never made the connection until after this constellation. What happens to that 8th generation? There's nothing but pure love, forward and back. There's something about the invitation for you to reach far enough back in your lineage to maybe something that feels more like a divinity to say, show me what pure love feels like. Show me what it means to be held and attended to and tracked with pure safety. Like, let me feel that. Let me feel how loved I am. As a prayer, as a meditation, as a visualization exercise, it's there for you. And so the invitation I'm offering you, I hope this isn't getting too convoluted, is the star energy wants to show you that you are held. And I'm giving you a lot of personal anecdotes right now. But one of the things I saw when I was working with the star, when it was my card of my year, and I did a lot of work with the energy, was this sense, and my mom says this about the temperance card, which is where we are in June energy, which is another layer of interesting, so much happening. I really, when I first saw this card and I closed my eyes, I just saw this like fairy dust touching everything. I hope that somewhere in this podcast that can be transmitted to you and you can feel the magic of that. What my mom always said about the temperance card, and what I experienced in my work with the star card, was that there is no pebble placed in your lane or on the path without care, meaning that everything you experience is divinely orchestrated. And that can feel like too much, like too, I don't know, who could do all that? Like what is the intelligence that could hold all of that? But that's what the energy of the temperance card is, the energy of the star card in this case, that like the guardrails are in place and you're not anywhere by mistake. So wherever you find yourself this week, and I imagine because we have the star card, there is going to be some energy here around some structure falling away, something giving way, and a sense of instability that comes after the fact. The star card is like, what do you want to reach for to remind you that it's okay, to remind you that you're right on time, to remind you that there are no mistakes. I was thinking about that. I had an experience with a friend this week, watching them go through something, and the thing that they are going through is very heartbreaking. And then on the other side of it was this gift, and then it became heartbreaking again. And then on the other side of that was this gift. And I just was thinking about her journey this morning, and I was thinking, there really are no mistakes. And when it's us, it can be hard to realize that. It can be hard to have a sense that, it can feel just hard. life, relationships, dynamics, work, like the hustle, like it can just feel really hard. But when there's distance, when you can witness it in another person, you can often say like, no, I see the harmony here. The star card is your male lineage, are the male ancestors saying, there is harmony here. So rest now and trust us. And again, this rolls into this energy of the Lovers and Temperance in June. There will be a third way, I promise you. So the energy of the star is the trust, the faith in the universe that if there isn't a place to go right now, if you don't know where your feet should be, you don't know what your words should be, you don't know what to do next, if you can relax into the moment, if you can take really tender care of your heart and yourself while you're in that confusion, a third way will appear. You are not the maker, or at least if you are also the one experiencing the harmony. And in this case, we're really kind of feeling into the one experiencing the harmony. And maybe you want to reach into your higher self. Maybe that's the divinity. Maybe that's the masculine energy you want to reach for, is that sense of that you are the harmonizer. Because it goes into that whole illusion thing. Like you are both the one who is creating and the one who is witnessing the creation and the one who is experiencing the creation. Like there's so much happening. There's so much happening in every moment. The star card this week will remind you to fill your own cup first. I've talked to you guys about my teacher Cass, who I just adore so much. And he really does talk about this sense of serving from overflow and working from overflow and creating from overflow. And the star card is the very clear and stark reminder that you must stay with yourself. You must fill your own cup first to really have an impact on the world. We run so thin, meaning like what we expect ourselves, the ground we expect ourselves to cover, we kind of expect to do it on such thin tires. I don't know, it's like a little bit of a weird metaphor, but maybe you can see it. We ask so much of ourselves and we give ourselves so little in return. Like there are very few of us taking up all the space we truly deserve in terms of self-keeping, in terms of breath. I was thinking about that today in a class I was in. And this is something we talk about a lot in Women's Circle and a lot in one-on-one work. Your breath is so key, and most of us are breathing so shallowly, if at all. The star energy is, if nothing else, will you give yourself permission to take deeper breaths this week? Will you say, I'm actually deserving of taking my time enough to fill my belly with breath? Most of us aren't doing that. And so when I say that most of us are operating in this very thin way, this is what I mean. There's so much more available to you. If you only believe me that there is more breath available to you and you start there, I promise you will see what I mean. I promise you, if you start with, I'm going to allow myself to take some more deep breaths this week, dude, it is the place of miracles. Going from moving in this very thin way, like kind of running on fumes a little bit, which many people are doing, me too, not separating myself. I have to work very hard not to do that. My boyfriend will tell you that. And I can run on reserves. And my work and the work of people who want to live more satisfying lives is to remember to fill your own cup first. You can run on these fumes, you can run on reserves only for so long. The best way to get a sense of that is to notice your breath. Like how much breathing you're doing has a direct correlation with how much power you're bringing to a situation, you're bringing to a moment. There's a concept that the person with the deepest breath in the room is the most powerful one in the room. And that can sound like, something you would learn in a business coaching class. And maybe it's interesting to think about from when you're walking into a negotiation. But what's more interesting to me is when you are allowed full breaths, when you allow yourself to take up that space, what you're saying is, I deserve to be here. What you're saying is, I am safe in my own skin. What you're saying is that I'm okay. No matter what's happening, like no matter what the dance is, the life is, I know I can trust myself with myself. that's why the breath matters, not because it's a power move, but because you are sourced in something deeper when you allow yourself full breaths. This feels like one of the most rambling podcasts I've ever done. So thank you if you stayed with me. Thank you if you're tracking with me at all. A lot came through, and it feels like I might be jumping around, but there is something here about infusion of energy into you and asking you to open your hands and receive it from whatever source feels good and safe for you to do so. And if you can't find that place, then I offer you to start with your breath. I offer you to say, what if I just allowed the air of this world, like the force that wants to breathe me, that wants to fill me with air, what if I just allowed a little bit more of that? You'd be surprised at what a powerful practice that is and what that can offer you in terms of your own centering, integrity, safety. And from there, you're just going to move differently. You just are. Star card is beautiful healing. It is love. It is protection. It is the awe with which the universe witnesses you. Oh my God, we're so freaking lucky that they're here with us and we get to watch them live their lives. Oh, there's so much here. There's a lot of energy here. This idea of, the angels weep to know what it means to be human, or the idea of the hundreds and thousands of ancestors of people that lived and struggled to allow you to be here where you are in your life right now. All of those angels, all of those ancestors, all of these beings that are looking at you with wonder and delight and cheering you on. And they are just so here with us this week. That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful place to be. I hope you can feel that love. I hope you can feel that light and that movement and that support. And I hope it gives you permission to take up a little more space, to take a little more rest, to infuse your own cup with some of that light and see what happens next. I am rambling. Oh my goodness. Ace of Cups is the bottom of the deck. I don't know, dudes. The energy of falling in love, the energy of divine intervention. It's just beautiful, beautiful stuff. I hope that we get to actually experience and live that this week. I will be very curious to see how that shows up in my life and in your life and, God willing, in the world. All right. Check you later. Much love. Bye.